This is Gamer Weekly, bringing you the latest of what the video game scene has to offer. On this episode of Gamer Weekly, I have Charles of Faux-Operative Games, and we're going to be talking about Ruin of the Reckless. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Gamer Weekly. With me today is Charles of Faux-Operative Games. Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
No problem. I'm glad to be here.
So we were going to have another person from the company, but his AOL signal dropped, so he can't go on.
Yeah, he's using internet.gov. Not working.
His Netscape account is
yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh man, I'm trying to think of a really obscure old internet reference.
Is Internet Explorer now obscure because it's not being used anymore?
Oh, now it's Edge.
Yeah. Nothing makes something more awesome than it being edgy. Yeah.
Yeah, I can just imagine how that corporate meeting went, where they're like, guys, we got to update Internet Explorer. We'll use the same symbol. It'll be exactly the same and do all the same stupid crap it used to do, but we need like a new hip name for the kids. And somebody was like, what about Edge? And they were like, that's awesome.
They were like,
that's sick. That's tubular. And then
they rode out on skateboards playing Tony Hawk and like Goldfinger Superman's playing in the background.
Literally playing Tony Hawk.
So Charles,
on their PSPs.
It went from 90s to 2004, which I mean, I think that's when the 90s ended about 2004. So
yeah, for sure.
So Charles, you are working on a game called Ruin of the Reckless, which I have been hearing from media outlets that it is a Hyperlight Drifter clone. What do you? I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Obviously, we were talking about it beforehand. So
yeah.
So
yep.
How is it different from Hyperlight Drifter?
Well, I guess it's like different in every conceivable way. It's more similar to something like Nuclear Throne or Binding of Isaac than it is like Hyperlight Drifter.
So it's extremely hard, and I can never get past the final boss.
Yeah, probably.
Nice.
I mean, it's funny because I spent a lot of time like making these. Okay, so one thing is the game takes a long time to compile. So when I'm working on it, it's like I had this realization that I wanted to make these really kind of elaborate ending sequences for each character. But then I was like, oh, I can't do that in the normal game because it's going to take so long to compile every time. It's going to be like a nightmare trying to build this whole new system that's like totally separate from the normal game and has to do all this different stuff because it's like managing this kind of complicated cinematic, right? And so I built a smaller version of the shell of the game just to work on the cinematics and like built all the cinematics really carefully and then imported them into the game and then started loading them through the game and then troubleshooting all the new problems that came. And anyway, the point of this story is it's like impossible to beat the game. I think 4 people have done it so far. So for those 4 people, I have put in a lot of effort. Let me put it that way, to have these endings in.
So for those that don't know what Ruin of the Reckless is, what exactly is the game?
It is a super fast-paced, very, like, it's a roguelite, but it's a lot heavier on the roguelike than it is, like, the roguelite than people are used to. Like, there's not as much persistent progression, and there's also a lot less vertical progression. So, like, you're not really, like, always getting more health and doing more damage and finding weapons that are better and better and better, but it's more like Zelda where all the different abilities you find give you different powers that are useful as you're trying to climb the tower. And you're a spirit, you're trying to climb this tower and have your wish granted. It's very cute, it's very, very difficult, it's very rewarding and fun, it's got a great soundtrack, people love it.
I've never had a developer tell me that their game was cute, so...
Oh, it's cute.
It's goddamn adorable.
It's like cute and kind of creepy and dark at the same time. So it's like if you ever watch Adventure Time, it has like this very cute veneer where everything's really adorable and fun.
And then Lich King.
Yeah, but then there's like all this weird, creepy stuff that's kind of hinted at, and like the world's actually kind of dark when you get. It's got a similar tone. We definitely were very inspired by Adventure Time when we were like setting the tone of the game. So,
are there like references to Adventure Time in the game as well?
No, I can't really think of any references to Adventure Time, but there's references to lots of other stuff. Lots of cool 90s stuff like Rad Sonic the Hedgehog games and
In Tony Hawk?
no Tony Hawk.
You better patch that in real quick, because
Patch in the Tony Hawk. See, the thing is, I never liked Tony Hawk, so I'm not going to do that.
were you like more of a Ryan Lindquist kind of guy?
I don't know what that is.
He was like the second character you could use in Tony Hawk. I
Oh.
I
Oh, wow. See, you should have known that wasn't going to work because I was like, I don't really like Tony Hawk. Then you're like, let me make an obscure Tony Hawk reference and just
hey,
drop this guy off the planet.
he was the second most popular skater, which I mean to Tony Hawk, I mean that's like here is this juggernaut and here is this little baby guy. So
I feel like I feel like there's a skater named Rodney Mullen who I really liked when I was in high school, but I don't really know too much about other skaters. I used to skateboard. My friends all played Tony Hawk. I was the worst at it.
and you were living Tony Hawk.
Oh yeah, I could even do an ollie.
Ooh.
Yeah. I did a kickflip one time, but I was trying to do an ollie.
My brother tried to do a kickflip. He fell off the board and smashed his hand, and he had a hard time using his hand, so he ended up he couldn't play games anymore except for Hearthstone, and that's all he was playing then. He was like, he messaged me and he was like, dude, this Hearthstone game's pretty awesome. I can't use my hand very well, but I'm really liking this game. And then all of a sudden he tells me like now he's at like $500 into the game. I'm like, okay, well, I'm
my
sorry that I
God.
showed you this game. That was a bad idea.
Oh my God, $500. Oh, there's so many better games you could play for $500. Oh, I don't understand. Oh, it makes me so sad.
So for Ruin of the Reckless, with the roguelite elements in it, where there's random levels being generated and stuff, exactly does that work? Like, how does the game know to put that next part in the level? Is it kind of like a insert this piece here if this piece says to go here?
Not really. It's more organic. It's like, Danny does more of the random generation stuff, but basically it's like there's this big field and then we kind of carve it out in different ways depending on like these random settings that get set under the hood. And then we populate it with, the various things that make it fun to explore. So we don't use like the Enter the Gungeon system of like little pre-made rooms that we stick together. I know that's a really popular method. There's a bunch of reasons we don't do that, but in general, I don't love that system because I feel like once you've seen the room, I don't know, it's not so much a roguelike anymore if that room keeps coming up and you're like, oh yeah, I know that room. I know what to do in this room. To me, that's not as fun. But I understand the benefit of it too, because you get to have these really tailor-made, like really highly polished challenges that are set to be a certain way. But Ruin of the Reckless is very chaotic, even from like a programming standpoint. The game, like it's almost like, in our minds, it's almost like a simulation. It's not a simulation, but it's almost like a simulation in that like in the back end, the way the game is programmed, we're very much like, okay, these are the rules of the world, and we're just going to let the world kind of decide what it does. We're not going to like go, okay, you've got to put this thing in here and do it this way. We don't subscribe to that as much.
So it's so chaotic that even you guys don't even know how it works.
Sometimes. Sometimes we don't know how it works. Sometimes it does things and we don't like it all. That's although recently it's been really stable and nice. Although, of course, yesterday we pushed a major big build and it broke like 3 things. And as soon as this podcast is over, I'm going to be like feverishly working on getting those things fixed in the next, hopefully, couple hours.
Because the game comes out from when it gets recorded. So I'm recording this on Monday, April 24th. So it comes out in a couple of days, right?
Yeah, it comes out in 2 days. But we're the kind of people that like to make things better, like constantly. So it's like we definitely could have left it like a week ago and been like, it's done, and we're not going to mess with it anymore because it's working and it's perfectly stable. But then we were like, okay, well, right before release, we're gonna add like these 3 really cool important things that are gonna make the game even better. And then of course we broke the game, and now we've got to go in and fix those things. But it's okay. My life is a series of panic and terror, so it's fine.
I totally get where you're coming from. There was one point where every single person that I booked for the show canceled, and I had nothing for 3 weeks. And I was like, well, here we go. This is where I lose everybody.
Well, yeah, I mean, I got to tell you, like, there was definitely a part of me that was like, I got to cancel this podcast just because there's stuff on the docket right now that's super important. But
I'm glad that
but I
you
don't like
did.
to do that kind of stuff. Plus, it's fun. This is kind of like a break for me.
Yeah, a break for
It's a break.
For everyone.
It's like the other day I was taking I spent like literally, I know this is gonna sound like I'm exaggerating, but literally like 13 hours straight just working on the game. And then it was like 11:30 when I was done, and I was like, I'm gonna make myself some dinner as a reward for working so hard. And I went and I started making dinner, and then I was like, what do I do while I make dinner? I was like, I put something on. And I like went on Twitch to find something, and somebody was streaming Ruin of the Reckless, and I just was like watching someone play Ruin of the Reckless all of a sudden, and talking to them about the game, and making dinner and eating it. And I was sitting there telling myself like, this is my break. I'm relaxing.
I'm watching someone play something that I've dedicated a good portion of my life to, and they might be telling everyone that they hate it.
Oh no, she loved it.
Oh,
She was having
fantastic.
a great time. That's so far. The reaction has been very, very positive and nice, and that's one thing I'm very thankful for. Because to work this hard on a game and then have people hate it would be a bummer. Not to say it's for everyone. There's definitely a certain player who's just like, this is not what I want. This is.
Before we started recording, he told me that I would probably suck at the game, so therefore I have to play it now to find out if I actually suck at said game.
Well, that's because you told me that you hate games that like are
hard.
repeatedly killing you and frustrating you. But that's like kind of what Ruin of the Reckless is. Like.
See,
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, see, because like the way like the okay, there are some games that I'm okay with that do that. Games like Dark Souls, where it just feels like it's just constantly killing you and you don't have any control over it, even though people have beaten the goddamn game with like Donkey Konga, and banana. Apparently, there is a guy that beat Dark Souls with bananas. So, hey, I mean, I'm trash. I'll just say it right there. I'm trash at that game. But like games like Binding of Isaac or like Rogue Legacy or even like this game that came out called Flinthook. That game is awesome too.
I love Flinthook.
I
love Flinthook. I bought it on release day. I thought I'm gonna play this at least a couple minutes today, and then I just got the chance to play it like 3 days ago. So I guess that was like 4 days after release. I played it for like 15 minutes, and I was like, this is pretty neat. And then that was it for me. That's what I paid for, because that's all the time I have.
I did get to play it for a couple hours, and this whole episode.
Okay, can I ask you about, since you've played it a little more than I have? I gotta ask you something.
Okay, absolutely.
And I know Flinthook is like the media darling right now, and everybody loves it. And I'm an indie dev myself, and I don't want to talk about any other indie devs. And Flinthook's amazing.
Also,
Let me get that out of the way.
Also, they might potentially be on my show, so we.
Yeah. Okay, so here's my very, very cursory criticism of Flinthook, having not played it as much as I would have liked. And that is, it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like within a specific run, your character doesn't really get stronger, right?
I haven't.
You don't really. It's you just run around and jump and shoot, and like you have your abilities, but they're basically set in stone when that run starts.
So the only gripe I've had so far with the game is that the hook mechanism sometimes doesn't like hit where I tell it to go.
Oh yeah.
And so like I'll be standing near a hook, but I have it aimed up at a different like hook thing to go to, and I shoot it and it goes straight to the one that was next to me and takes me down a level that I was already in, and I was like, that's not where I want it to go. So
yeah, there's a little bit too many hooks in the levels, to the point where like, since there's auto aim on the hook, it like you feel like you're aiming at one hook and then it hits another. And then the other weird thing is that a lot of the time they have a little bubble monster and they put him right next to one of those hooks.
And you go straight into the monster.
Yeah, and they clearly do it on purpose, like it's supposed to be that way because it's always like that. Like when there's a little bubble guy, he's like spinning around the hook. But
Right.
the thing is, like he'll be in he'll be in between the hook and you, and you'll think that you're gonna pop his bubble, but instead your hook will like go past and through him and auto target the hook behind him, and then you'll go rocketing into him. It just feels really weird. But like whatever. My criticism is only for me in a roguelike, I want to get stronger with it. I want to like level up and develop my character within the run because I don't like the maybe it's more of a personal thing, but I don't like the persistent progression as much. You know what I mean? Like I don't have that much motivation to run around and find all the gold and stuff in the levels because I know that's only going to be used to make my future runs easier. And to me, like equipping all those perks and stuff almost feels like cheating. Like anytime I make the game easier, I feel like I'm cheating.
Right. Yeah. No, I don't know if you're hearing this. Do you hear like a little like doo doo sound at all?
It's probably my computer. It's probably my Discord. I'll mute my Discord and
Okay.
oh well then I won't be able to.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't like just imagining something. So anybody that's been listening to this, um, hey, it happens. I didn't know. I thought it was me, so I was like, who is messaging me? What's going on? Because it was my first foray into Discord. So, um,
Flinthook is amazing. I find it extremely impressive as an indie dev. It makes me very jealous that it exists and it's so beautiful and it's so polished and everything about it is so nice. And the game feels absolutely stellar. The hit effect when you shoot monsters is mwah, mwah. That little red blue, like I don't know. They did some really, really impressive stuff with Flinthook, and it looks like they're going to be rewarded greatly because it seems to be just absolutely blowing up, which is great. Good for them. But I will say, I think my criticisms are valid, and yours are as well, which is the hook bubble thing. It's too much, and for me, if I'm like having so much persistent progression and so little, I don't know what to call it, within a run progression, to me that's the opposite of how I would like a roguelike to be designed. Like Ruin of the Reckless is the opposite. Like we have a persistent progression element, but it's like mutators and minor things. It's not really intended to be something that you're constantly upgrading your character through this system between runs. It's more like you're trying to upgrade your character within the runs and upgrade your skill set within the runs. And I think that's the more fun way to do it. But I guess there's different philosophies on it.
so I think I figured out how Discord works. I am going to. I think if I mute it, it should be fine. Okay.
Well, if well, I don't know.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Because okay, I was getting
Oh,
notifications.
it is you. Yeah, you
Yeah.
need to mute my channels.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. Yeah, because it just I don't know if that's gonna come up in this at all. So if people while people have been listening, hey, if you were hearing that, I'm sorry. I just learned how to use Discord because I never use it. So I use all my other interviews have been Skype related.
Yeah,
So
I gotta say, Discord's great though. Audio quality's great.
yeah,
It
no,
works great once you know how to use it. It is a pain, but everything's a pain. So get used to it. That's life. Life is suffering. Discord's suffering. Google Hangouts is suffering.
and roguelites are suffering as well because they're hard.
Oh yeah. Oh, the funniest thing is sometimes I get on like a stream, and sometimes I'll just like watch a stream and not say anything, and maybe the streamer won't notice me sometimes. And I'll be watching it, and they'll just be like, "I hate this game. I hate it." Oh, but they'll be playing for like 6 hours.
Like with Flint Hook and with like Binding of Isaac and Rogue Legacy, um, which Binding of Isaac I bought it for the Switch and I finally beat Mom, which I never did before on PC. So I know. That's probably probably the
I think
easiest
beating
thing.
Mom's pretty good. Isaac's a
Oh,
hard game.
that is like I was proud of myself that I even got there in the first place, and then when I actually beat it, I was like, "Oh my god, am I actually good at this game now?" And then the next run, I died like in the second room. I'm like, "Never mind."
Well, here's the thing. Isaac is one of those games where like the content has been tailored. The fan base and community is so huge and so proactive and so excited that it's kind of like Nuclear Throne. If there's this quote from Rami about Nuclear Throne where he's like, one of our biggest problems as developers is that our players are too good at the game. So you have this giant community of players that's really, really good at Binding of Isaac, right? And so they're constantly pushing. I think Edward McMullen is his name. They're constantly pushing him to make the game harder and more interesting for them. So now there's all this late game content, and it's awesome. Don't get me wrong, it's all awesome, but it does create this problem now where you've got a new player who's got 4 hours of Isaac experience or whatever it is, and you've got an older player who's got 5,000, maybe literally. So now
Which is just ridiculous. I mean,
you've got to make a game. Yeah, I know it's bananas, but there are certainly at least a couple people out there like that, and you you've got to make a game that's interesting and fun for both of them. You know what I mean? So like obviously to like the Isaac community, beating Mom is not very impressive
but for
because
me,
like they can all beat Mom whenever they want. For them, that's like, oh well, if you know, they're all about. I'm going to do greed mode runs and
I tried that once and that did.
yeah, I'm
and
going to do challenge runs and I'm going to use the worst character and I'm going to handicap my, you know. So it's like, don't feel bad about just beating Mom. That's the furthest I had ever gotten, Isaac, is beating Mom. But back when I did it, that was at the end of the game. That was it.
To me, I felt like I beat Binding of Isaac, even though the game is like, you've got more. People are like, oh, you can put thousands of hours into the game. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that much into the game. Like, I think putting 100 hours into a game is a little much. Like, I stumbled upon the Persona 5 like collector's edition thing. I don't know if you played Persona at all before.
A little bit.
That's where I'm at too. People were telling me how great it was, and I went into a place that sells games. I don't want to say what place it is because I hate them, but
GameSpot?
that's not not GameSpot.
GameStop?
No, not yeah, it's that place, but shh, I used to work. Actually, I don't want to say anything about them.
Don't worry, they're going out of business.
Good. But they had a special collector's edition there, and I bought that, so I dropped $90 on it, and I was like, oh man, this is kind of cool. And apparently, it's going for like 140 now, and I'm like, I don't know if I want the game now. But
40 hours
but,
to beat Persona 5?
Yeah, it apparently takes like 100 hours to beat the game, and I'm like, man,
That's too much for me.
I thought putting like 50 hours, I think, into Breath of the Wild was like a lot, but I just don't have time for that, man. Like if it was like middle school days where all I was doing was playing video games, I could easily do a Persona game. But now it's like, oh, how long is it going to be? Oh, I don't want to do that. Or like, I think that's why like roguelike games and walking simulator type games, I know that's two totally different spectrums, but like games that are either short.
It's like opposite.
Right. Let's see if I can find a way to connect it without sounding like a complete idiot on this. People want a short burst of an experience. So that is an option. And then with like the roguelike games, it's like if you want to play longer, it rewards you for playing the game longer. But if you play it for like 2 hours, you still feel like you got something out of it.
It's like the same reason that Overwatch works so well, I think. Because like the games are 10 minutes long. So it's like it's way easier to play 9 games of Overwatch for an hour and a half than it is to play an hour and a half of like
League,
Final Fantasy or whatever.
Like I can't play MOBA games to save my life. I am so bad at them, and they take so long. It feels like you're just doing nothing, and until
I have a lot of stuff to say about MOBAs. Don't get me started on MOBAs. But it's like, I can't resist the rant. It's a 45-minute long game where 30 of those minutes are spent fighting NPC creeps that offer no challenge and trying to avoid fighting the other people because you just want to level up, right? And then when the fighting finally does start, you like mess up one time, die. It causes your whole team to lose the game, and then they're all so mad at you because you wasted 40 minutes of their time only to like walk into a team fight and pathetically die at the beginning. And now everybody loses and everybody loses rank and it's all your fault. And we spent all day doing it. It just no, that is not the game but I like Overwatch because it has that same, like, I understand why people like them because they love like the teamwork and they get to queue up with their friends and there's all this strategy to it. But Oh man,
Yeah,
I just can't do it.
like I'm glad that there's a competitive, quote unquote competitive game that like Overwatch, where I can play it for 5 minutes and get something out of it, and not have to do something like League of Legends, where I am messing up 45 minutes
Yes.
and ruining everyone else's experience. I can still ruin everyone's experience with Overwatch, but it's only for 5 minutes. You know, if I'm
Yeah.
terrible, they just kick me out. You know, and they just go into the next match.
On that subject, though, I like that you put the Overwatch competitive in quotation marks because I just want to say this real quick. Not that I play Genji or something, anything, because I don't. But for all the people that crap on Overwatch and say it takes no skill, I played a lot of first-person shooters in my day. There is no character in any first-person shooter that I know of that is as crazy impossible to play as Genji or Tracer are. Like,
Yeah.
I've never seen a game where characters move that fast and have that much mobility and are expected to like spin around and move their camera that much and shoot accurately. I understand, like, yes, Mercy's in the game too. I get that, but and not to say she takes no skill because I don't want to get like a million.
Because
I don't want to get like a million hate mail letters.
that's the
You know?
character I use.
Yeah.
Because like
But
every time I play Overwatch, no one picks a healing class.
yeah,
Everyone just picks like the
that's me.
dwarf
You're
dude
talking about me right now.
Treborn. I don't know how to say his name.
Torbjorn.
Torbjorn. Yeah, I don't know why I can't say. But yeah, everyone picks him, or like the dude with the shield. I don't remember his name. Reinhardt, I think is his name.
Yeah, no, no. I mean, that's okay. That is my main criticism of Overwatch is somehow Blizzard didn't learn its lesson from WoW, and they've created a game where 2 to 3 people on your team have to play healers and tanks, but no one ever wants to do it ever.
You know,
So it's like every game you're like, can someone please heal? And everyone's like, I don't like healing. It's boring. And you're like, somebody please just sacrifice your fun and play healer even though you hate it so that we don't automatically lose.
you-
And usually somebody's like, "Oh, fine, I guess I'll do it."
that's
You
me.
know? It's funny cuz in League they just like force people to play healer, which I think is the funniest solution like as a game designer cuz you're just like, "Okay, well, we require there to be healers on the team, but nobody ever wants to play them." So I guess that's a problem with the game. And you're like, well, there's some ways maybe we could make healers more interesting, or maybe we could make healers a little less necessary so people feel like they can play the things they want more, or maybe we could just ruin their time and force them to play a character they don't want to play at all and just like make them miserable for no like maybe is that a good solution? And then I can see the whole team just being like, yeah, that makes sense. Let's just force people to have a horrible time. Because if I don't, because here's the thing, it's not that playing a healer is necessarily a horrible time. But what I'm saying is, if the mechanic is literally forcing people to play healers specifically when they don't want to, then you're obviously kind of interrupting your players' enjoyment, right? Because you're like they don't want to pick a healer and you're making them.
See, I'm so bad at first person shooters that it's kind of nice that I can just be like, it's gotten to the point now where I just automatically just pick Mercy. And of course, when I decide that I want to be healer, that means someone else has already had a healer picked, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
never mind then. I'll just pick somebody else. And like, you're terrible. It's like, well, when you only get to play the healing class and no one else picks it, you kind of are terrible at everything
yeah,
else.
no, I mean that, and that's all cascading from the same issue I'm talking about, which is they should not have made either the healers and the tanks need to be a lot more interesting and fun to play than they made them. Sorry, tank and healer players, but like the numbers don't lie. Like 60% of players prefer to play DPS or something, and that really skews the numbers heavily. You know, um, they either need to make those characters more fun to play, or they need to make them less necessary because I understand the whole balance of the game is relying on this like holy trinity healers, tanks, damage thing, but it's a first person shooter. So like the way you're interacting with the game is by pointing at things and shooting them. So characters that can't point at things and shoot them are like inherently going to be less fun. It's kind of like if you had characters in a platformer and then it's like a co-op platformer and everybody needs to play, but one of them just can't jump.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, well, that's not necessarily like the worst thing in the world, but it is a platformer. So not being able to jump probably means that person's not going to have very much fun. And other than that, I think Overwatch is like one of the most amazing games I've ever played. I know there's a lot of haters out there, but the thing I find really interesting about it is that I can sit down with like someone who doesn't really play first person shooters or understand them that well, and we can play together and we can both have a good time and both be effective. You know what I mean? Like they can pick Winston or Mercy or whatever, and they can be involved in the fight and contributing. And even though they have like 1/100th the experience I have, they're not useless. Whereas like in Unreal Tournament or something, you know how it goes. If there's a noob on your team, he's not going to do anything. He's just going to get repeatedly trashed like over and over, to the point where like he's probably just going to quit. So I think there's a lot of great things about that formula, but those are my limited criticisms of Overwatch for anyone that cares.
I think this is one of the we're actually going to wrap it up here. I think this is actually one of the first times for this podcast where it actually seemed, not that it hasn't been like a podcast before, but this one seems a little more discussion based just on general gaming, which is a nice break, I guess, from things. I think everyone out there, though, should definitely go check out Ruin of the Reckless, though. The game comes out.
I didn't really talk about it that much. I guess I should have, because like ostensibly I'm here to promote my game. But
I think you did a good job at promoting it still, because I mean we still talked about it, but
it's great. You guys should buy it. Everyone buy it. Buy my game. Please, I want to falafel.
The game is going to be out in a couple of days from this recording, so when this episode goes out, the game will already be out. So go check it out on Steam. And Charles here said he's going to give me the game for free, so we're already great to go on that. So I'm just.
I said that. Well, no, I'll give it to you.
Oh, okay. I was totally kidding, but hey, that works.
Oh well, you want to do some post-release coverage?
What does that entail?
I don't know, like, put up a YouTube video about the game or something.
Okay, I'll do it.
You're under duress because you're like trying to do the outro to your podcast, and I'm like, hey everybody, if he doesn't agree to this right now, he's a dick. And you're look at him. Is he going to agree to it? Is he going to? No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to put you on the spot. You can edit this all out if you want.
No. Nothing gets edited except for this middle part that I'm looking at, that where like everything dropped. I'll definitely edit that. And anyone listening is like, what are they talking about? Exactly. You'll know it at the tail end. I'll just say all this.
Okay. So let me just say to all your viewers, I love you all. I think you're great. I don't know anything about you, but please buy my game.
Everybody out there listening, thank you for listening. I greatly appreciate it. You can find the show on just about every single platform available. So Stitcher, TuneIn, SoundCloud, YouTube, everything. You can also follow it, Gamer Weekly, on Twitter and Facebook, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Tell your friends, and we're halfway. I know this is not the biggest achievement, but we are halfway to be able to have a custom URL for the YouTube channel. So that would be really awesome. Even if you listen to it mainly on SoundCloud, the subscription would be awesome, just so that I can actually change the URL, so I don't have to tell people, like, there is a YouTube channel somewhere in there. You have to find it. You have to Google it. It's like, no, I can just give you the straight up link for it. But all the links are on SoundCloud, so you can find it easily on there. And spread the word. And go buy Ruin of the Reckless. And hopefully I make a review for it. Now I'm determined to do it. So... thank you.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show. And I know this is a bit of a different style of what we usually do for the show, but I hope everyone out there likes it. And also, big shout out to the Making a Game subreddit for letting me put my stuff on the subreddit. Most of my listens come from you guys. You guys are awesome, and I really appreciate you guys letting me post on there, because all the other subreddits hate me. So thank you guys for listening. Follow, subscribe, like it, do all that stuff. And yeah, thank you guys for listening, and goodbye.